And welcome back to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. So Natalie, magical destinations of the Northeast. Why did you decide to focus on the Northeast?
That was Lou Ellen that decided that one. Originally, the book was going to be one book, all 50 states, with only 2 sites per state.
Oh, okay.
Plus some of the, the emblems and also the stop by for a spell. Mm-hmm. That was the proposal. Right. And when they came back, they were like, "Oh, this sounds really cool, but let's do more. Let's expand it and whatnot." So they pretty much broke the country into 4 bits. Okay. And Northeast was the first. Okay. Which was a gift because A, it's my home turf. Yeah. B, it's relatively easy to get everywhere within a day. Just about everywhere is almost everywhere is within a day's drive. Wow. So I was actually able to visit quite a bit of the, quite a few of the places that are in the book.
Were you able to get to all the places you wrote about?
About 85%.
85%. Well, it's still quite a lot. Yeah. Wow. And so then there'll be a southeast, a north, southwest, and a northwest eventually?
Hopefully, if the book does well.
Okay.
That always has to preface everything.
Yes, absolutely. When did the book come out?
October.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it came out
only
October.
Come out a few months. How's been the reaction so far?
It seems we've gotten a real positive response so far.
Okay, great.
I've really been checking on sales because that's not fun.
Right.
But it's so far people seem to really like it. People have found it to be a very useful guide, which is one of the things I was really aiming for. Right. So if this one does well, the next would be West, followed by South, and then the Midwest.
I see. Cool. So it's broken up. This book is broken up kind of by state, and what's kind of I noticed this kind of like a set structure for each chapter. So what's kind of the structure? How does it work?
Yeah. So I mean, the way we this ended up being developed again, it was just like trial and error until we found the formula for it and whatnot. So the first bit is like a little bit of an introduction to what the state is, just like kind of a teaser, and the whole book in a way is kind of a teaser because any one of these places that's in here, there are books written on them. Right. There's no way. I mean, it's too vast of a topic to include. I mean, there's books written on the Washington Monument, for example. And articles and articles. Nira has produced so many articles on the stone structures found throughout New England. Yeah. So I mean, it's what I have is really just a tidbit and a taste. Mm-hmm. So then what happens after and I'm referring to the book because like I told you, I can't remember everything.
That's okay.
So you get a little introduction to the state. Then I go into the esoteric properties of the state emblems, 3 of them anyway. The tree, the flower plant, and then the stone. And each of these has its own particular magical properties. Some of the emblems have sites that are associated with them too, so you can actually go see and experience them and whatnot. And then there's a bit of there's a bewitching tidbits, which is kind of like folklore, who slept here, like little interesting facts. Again, sometimes with places that people can actually go and see. Right. And then magical monuments is cemeteries, but also other kinds of monuments, not just cemeteries, but cemeteries kind of play a big part. And the more people I meet, the more I find people are fascinated with cemeteries. Yeah. They're wonderful places to visit.
I actually was just at my dad's cemetery this past weekend. My sister was in town from Israel, and it had been a long, long time since we'd gone out there. So I talked to her about it. We decided to go out on my birthday and thought it would be a nice way to pay our respects.
Yeah, it's just cemeteries are wonderful places. They're park, they're museum, they're history book, they're genealogical record. There's they have so much to offer. Right. So that was an important thing to include. Then there's the sacred sites, and in a way, having these other sections was a kind of sneaky way to get more sites in because some of them are associated with
different
sites.
Aspects. Okay,
exactly.
Gotcha.
And then the chapter rounds out with a stop by for a spell. And I thought that was really, that was an important thing to include, I thought, because as much as I could talk about a place, having visited or not visited or whatever, even if I love it, it's not the same as someone who's lived in that area or in that state. And I thought it was really important to have an authentic voice. Yeah. So I got a lot of gifts with this book because there were so many people that, willingly, freely shared their time and their talents and, contributed all of this, all these rituals and whatnot.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. So was it difficult to find people who would share that stuff with you, or was it relatively easy?
This time it was relatively easy. I mean, there were some places where I knew people already. Right. So that was good. Right. But then there were places like in Rhode Island, I just reached out to the folks at Horn and Cauldron and I was like, hi, my name is Natalie. Here's what I've done and this is what I'm doing. And would, you guys are Rhode Island. Can you do this ritual for me? Oh. And they happily contributed this wonderful ritual for Rhode Island.
Cool.
Yeah. So sometimes, and people are very generous.
Wow. So of all the different states listed here, now, how many sites did you do per state? Is it a set number per state, or would it vary?
It varies. There's not going to be as many sites in Delaware, say, as Pennsylvania. Right. Pennsylvania was a bear in a good way because there were so many that there were things that had to be left out.
Oh, okay. So which of the states in this book, which one would you say had the most amount of sites, whether you included them or not in the book? Which would you say is the most magical state of the Northeast?
Oh, dear. Okay. I don't know if I could answer which is the most magical because then the other 12 or the other 11 would be very upset. Right. But in terms of sheer volume, I would say it would be a toss-up between New York and Pennsylvania.
New York and Pennsylvania.
Followed closely by Massachusetts in terms of volume.
Okay.
But I think that really has more to do with historical, right. And happenings and population and people living there and that kind of thing. Right. That's why you've got, so much. But there was no set amount.
Which state would you say had the most, the largest active witch/pagan community? Do you have a sense of that? Would it be the same like Pennsylvania or New York, or would it be different?
I guess it would be between those three.
Yeah. Okay.
Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts.
Yeah. Just again for the same reason, because of the history.
Correct. And then you have, and it's so funny because with Pennsylvania, I mean, even Massachusetts too, there's rural areas, but there's, dense city areas, especially in New York. I've met witches from New York City. It's completely different practice than out in Western New York. Out by, say Niagara Falls or Lilydale or that kind of thing. There's a different vibe, different feeling as well.
Did you make it to Lilydale?
Yes, I did.
Oh, what was that like?
That was fantastic. Now, I went in the off season. Okay. I don't go in the summer. I'm not a crowd person. Right. Funnily enough, I can walk around Manhattan and be fine. But put me in a place like a concert, whatever, and I'm rocking back and forth in a corner. It's going to be over. But we went. Oh, it was great. We went in the winter. It was I think it was in February, and there was snow all over the ground. It didn't matter though. There's something special about Lilydale.
And that whole burnt over district.
And you can feel it in the streets. It's just, you turn a corner and you're driving down country roads and whatnot, and there were just snowmobiles everywhere and whatnot. And then there's the gate. And then you turn in and it's like time stopped because the roads are very narrow. None of them are really, we were driving over snow, but from what I understand, none of them are really, paved. It's all gravel and everything. But there was a certain kind of serenity with snow covering the there's an outdoor theater. It's a temple. But it looks like a theater. There's a stage and everything. And just icicles everywhere. Then you go into the woods. And it was silent, and you could feel it was just wonderful. I remember walking through the woods and thinking, okay, because I usually don't get a lot of feelings and signs. I'm one of those sighted people. It just doesn't happen for me. But I'm sitting there in the woods, and I'm like, okay, just give me a little sign, give me something, right? Yeah. No wind, nothing, and the snow just falls off the trees right in front of my face. It was great. It was perfect. No animals, no squirrels. There was no there was no explanation for it other than they were like, yes, Natalie, you were meant to be here. So it was wonderful.
Nice. How large is Lilydale?
It's teeny.
It's small, right?
It's very small. You could walk it end to end, no problem.
Right. Okay, cool. What did you learn in writing about all these places and going to so many of them? that you think would help if somebody picks up your book and says, okay, I want to go to a few of these sites? Like, what would you recommend? Like, how should you prepare, or like, what should you do to get the most out of the experience?
I think you want to go in with no expectations. I would say that. Go as tabula rasa. Go as a blank slate. Because I found that sometimes preparing, you prepare yourself out of it. You know what I mean? Right. Go like you're going to a special place, but be like, okay, what's going to happen? Right. Whatever happens here, whatever I feel, whatever comes of it, I'm open to it. But yes, I've learned that and not just that's been kind of a lesson over the past several years, has been like just roll with it.
Are there any places you went that you wish you had spent more time at?
Yes, definitely Earth Clock up in Vermont.
Earth Clock, what's that?
Yeah, it's all right. So there's this organization called Circles for Peace. Okay. They're located up in Vermont. But their goal is to put one of these parks, these peace parks, in every state, which would be a marvelous goal for them to achieve.
Oh, wonderful! I love that.
Yes, and the peace parks are these stone circles. And there are places like Stonehenge. There are places like America's Stonehenge where there's stones that are aligned with and they're ancient stones. And there are places, throughout the United States that are, that have these ancient stones. But they're new. These are new. You can touch them. They're hanging all over. You don't feel bad about, just, skin your backpack on one of them or that kind of thing. And the stones aren't too upset with it either. Okay. But they're aligned with different parts of and different sacred sites throughout the state, right. And also into New York, and because it's right across the river, lake. I'm sorry, it's a special place. It's also a clock. There's a crystal in the center. Yes, it's an amazing place.
Cool. What was your biggest surprise in going to all these places and researching for this book?
Just sometimes you'd get like that. You'd go to a place just like when I went to Mount Rushmore, and I was underwhelmed by it. That's what I mean, like no expectations. Right. But when I went to Devil's Tower, I was just blown away. Right. So that was the thing. Is like I found that whenever I went, and I wasn't thinking about it, and I didn't put too much effort into it, and I didn't try to manipulate the experience. That's when I had the most profound experience.
Gotcha. Yep. Gotcha. Would you make a recommendation if let's say someone picks up the book and goes, okay, I can't do a lot. Like what's the one place I should definitely go to if I can't make too many places?
What state?
Well, in the book, Northeast.
Okay.
Let's say New York, New Jersey, Connecticut.
Oh dear. Okay, so because it's packed full of so many things, I would say pick an area where you can go to a couple of things, or just, you know what? I also like the whole bibliomancy thing. Flip the book open. Wherever it goes, that's where you're meant to go.
Oh, okay. What was the most dense area? You said like some of those places are very dense. What was an area where there was like a lot of sacred sites all together?
I would say New York City.
New York City?
Oh, New York City is full of places.
Oh, okay, cool. We'll talk more about that. Okay, great. We're going out to our last commercial break of the hour. Believe it or not, we're almost done. So everybody, please stay tuned. You're listening to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. My guest is Natalie Zaman of Magical Destinations of the Northeast. We'll be right back.